Well, hey, Dave, Melinda here, Positive Polarity. I hope things are going awesome for you this week. I'm honored to be able to bring you this podcast this week with a special guest, but it does come with some adult content. And so I just wanted to give you that heads up in case you had kids around. This may not be an episode that you want them to hear. So there is some painful things that our guest talked about, and I just want to be cognizant of that for you. In case you listen with kids around, you may want to have them go and do something else. So enjoy it, and please let me know how I can help. Going. Hey, Dave Mullen here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I got a word that we all deal with, but I'm guessing we deal with it in incredibly different ways. Some people embrace it, some people run the other direction. And so I'm going to start with the question like we do every week. And the question is, do you ever feel stuck in life? And the word we're going to talk about today is fear, because I see so many people that get stuck at that fear spot. And so I'm not an expert in it. I know just enough to be dangerous. So I'm like, I got to get an expert on this topic. So I invited Rhonda Britten. How are you today?
I am very excited to be here, listening to that beautiful accent of yours and being in the Midwest with you. I love it. It makes me feel right at home.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're from Michigan, I'm from Wisconsin,
That's
so we
right.
totally are neighbors and we probably like we were laughing before, we probably got running water and electricity at about the same time. So I love that. So right now you're
Well,
in California, but
yep.
you're founder and CEO of a movement called Fearless Living Institute. So fill us in on that, Rhonda. What is Fearless Living Institute?
Well, fearless living is devoted to helping people break free from fear so they can live the life their soul intended. And one of the first hurdles that I always have to get over is people even recognizing that they have fear. Because most people don't even know it. I mean, especially growing up in the Midwest, growing up in the UP of Michigan, and being 100% Finnish, there's no feelings and there's no fear. We don't talk about these things. So I would say most of my life, I had no relationship with the word fear or afraid or I'm scared, even during the worst times of my life, even when I was crawling through glass, right? Even though I was like not doing well in so many ways,
Sure.
I still didn't have an experience of fear. Like if you would have asked me during my darkest days if I was afraid, I would have told you no. So it was only after I started surrendering to this concept of fear and being willing to have the ability to look at it and being nudged to go there and to
Sure.
even start understanding what it means was I able to set myself free.
That's awesome. And so recognize fear. I like that piece because I think it's hard for us. I mean, let's face it, most of us get in a daily rut, a daily routine, a daily jam. We wake up and we do the same thing. We go to work, we come home, we do the same thing. And we do a lot of talking and training and we've done research on the comfort zone because most people, that's where they live, right?
Yep.
And then they get into maybe like for the people listening right now, they want to grow and they want to learn. But in
Yes,
between that comfort zone and that growth zone is what's called the fear zone.
that's
And
right.
that's where people get stuck.
Mhm.
So I just want to say this kind of at the onset. If you hear, as the listener, if you hear yourself doubting something that Rhonda said, if you hear yourself say, that would never work, you don't know my life, if you get stuck in that, I just want to kind of encourage you right up front to kind of just push that aside because if you get stuck in that fear zone, you're not going to learn anything. And so I've experienced that for myself. I've seen it experienced in clients that I work with. Rhonda's going to have a ton of research and fun stuff on her end to talk about that. But I just, again, for the listener, I just want you to encourage you to not shut down because otherwise you'll stop listening, you'll go do something else. And this could change your life. I mean, this is really life-changing stuff that Rhonda's going to share with us today. So start us at the beginning because you didn't just wake up and all of a sudden you were, this guru on fear. So kind of walk us through what happened in your world and what got you to this spot.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you then about the worst day of my life. And I do believe the worst days of our life have the seed of our destiny. We never see it at the time, of course, because they're the worst days of our lives, right? We're,
Right.
crawling through glass. So we don't
Yep.
can't see it. We just feel this horrific overwhelm, etc. But now looking back on it, I can see it really all began on the worst day of my life when I was 14 years old in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And so I grew up there in a little tiny town, two restaurants we had at the time, Big Boy and the Fancy Douglas House Buffet Hotel. And my parents were in the middle of getting separated. And it was Father's Day. So my father was going to come out and take us all out to brunch. So me and my mom were in her bedroom and she's putting on her, blue eyeshadow and puffing up her beehive hairdo and putting on her rose-colored lipstick. And my two sisters are in our one bathroom fighting it out. And my dad walks in the back door, come on, because that's what dads do. And me and my mom start walking towards the back door. My two sisters still in the bathroom fighting it out. And yeah. And as we walk out, it's starting to sprinkle. So my dad says he's got to get his coat from the car. So this coat was a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat. And I don't know if you're old enough to remember, that was pretty hot, right? My father in his polyester pants, his plaid shirt, his Naugahyde coat looked pretty good. So I
Yeah.
see him opening the trunk to get it out, and I'm, got my eye looking at it. And I notice that he has not grabbed a coat, but he has grabbed a gun. And he starts yelling at my mother, "You made me do this. You made me do this." And he fires. And I
Mm,
start screaming, "Dad, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? Stop." And he cocks the gun again. He points it at me. And I
mm.
absolutely believe I'm next. He blinks, I blink, he blinks, I blink. We're just frozen in time. And my mother, with her last breath, literally sees what's happening and screams out, "No, don't." My father, hearing her voice, realizes that my mother is not dead, that she is alive. And so he takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that
Oh,
second bullet goes through my mother's abdomen, out her back, and lands into the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I heard was, "Eeng."
wow.
And then my father cocks the gun one more time, puts the gun to his head, and fires. So, in
Oh,
a matter of probably less than 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me. Now, I don't know how other people would respond, but this is how I responded. It's my fault because I did nothing heroic. I didn't grab the gun, I didn't kick him in the shins, I didn't even jump in front of my mother. So in that moment, two Rhondas existed, the inside Rhonda and the outside Rhonda. And the outside Rhonda is fine. No, everything's fine. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm fine. But the inside Rhonda, self-hatred, guilt, shame, and when you watch your mother die, you never get to be happy again. So that's off the table. And
right.
so these two Rhondas coexisted for the next 20 years until I could take myself back. But during those 20 years, the inside Rhonda was self-destructive, right? I found alcohol to soothe my wounds and my trauma and became an alcoholic. I had 3 DUIs. I tried to kill myself 3 times. And I realized something that third suicide attempt when I woke up in the hospital is I'm not very good at killing myself, not good at it. And I've got to figure out another way. And by the way, if you do try to kill yourself 3 times, they will put you in a psychiatric ward for evaluation. So they did put me in there for a few days, deemed me not crazy, let me go. I went back to my little studio apartment, which lived alone, which is not a good idea if you're suicidal.
Sure.
And I remember thinking to myself, for the last 20 years, I have read books. I have gone to workshops. I have gone to therapy. I have done everything I was told to do and more so. And here I am again. Here I am again. And I realized that I had a lot of knowledge and I had a lot of tools, but I really didn't know how to apply them. And like what you were saying earlier, it was really fear that was holding me back from applying those tools, applying that knowledge. So I remember sitting in my studio apartment that day and said to myself, I've got to start over. I've literally just got to start over. And I thought to myself, well, what do kindergartners do? Well, they get a calendar and gold stars. So I actually went to the store, got a calendar, got some gold stars, and for the next 30 days, I took what I call a stretch, risk, or die and gave myself a gold star every time I took a stretch, risk, or die. And those things were simple things because we're not talking high evolution at this point. We're talking about drinking and not getting drunk or getting angry and not breaking anything. But at the end of 30 days, I had a calendar filled with gold stars. And during those whole 30 days, I challenged myself on how do I apply these things? How do I do it? And what
Sure.
came up in my face was fear. And it was the beginning of my journey to understand how fear works. And then eventually, of course, I created a model that I used to save my own life and, of course, used for other people as well.
Wow. Holy cow. I mean, there's just so much there. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thanks for sharing that. I'm thinking about this inside Rhonda and this outside Rhonda piece, right? For the person listening, there are, in today's world, I think vulnerability is like underutilized. It's like we don't want to, don't. I remember my dad saying, don't tip your hand or don't let them see you sweat.
Yeah,
These things that are like just like so easy to say, but like, boy, they just turn you into somebody you're really not.
they cost
And
you a lot.
yeah, so you have this outside Rhonda that's okay. I mean, but then this inside Rhonda, not okay.
Not okay.
So speak to that if you could, because I'm guessing right now there's probably at least one person on this planet listening to this that has that, oh my gosh, I never could identify that prior to now. So did you know that like at the time that you had this inside Rhonda and outside Rhonda, or how
I don't
did
know
you
if I
get
could,
first
I don't know if I
exposed
could
to
have articulated it that way. I just
that?
knew that that I had to play a part to belong, to be connected, to be loved. And, our number one human need is connection and belonging. Of course, I didn't know that at the time,
Sure.
but I was driven to find a replacement, for friends and men to love me because I had nothing, I had nobody. And I would just soak in all that attention and all that love, hoping it would feed me and hoping it would fix me, hoping it would make me feel better. But of course, because I was accepting love from that place, they didn't love me because
Yeah.
I wasn't myself, right? So I teach my clients now is like, if you are not yourself, if you are not authentically you, even if they love you, they don't love you. They love the outside you. They love the you
Yeah.
that you're showing, right? So that is, and people know it. People know it. I knew it. I always, you don't really love me, right? Well, where does that come from? Because I knew I wasn't being myself, right?
Yeah.
Because never had permission to be myself from other people, and then of course, just for self survival, I couldn't do
Sure.
that.
Oh. What about, so my next book I'm working on is about business blind spots. And I think about blind spots because like I'm guessing there are people listening right now that they have this big blind spot that like you just said some things that like they didn't even comprehend
Mhm.
because they have these big blind spots. I'm fine, life is good, there's no problems.
No problems.
Or hide it under the carpet. Let's not talk about it. We don't talk about those things in our family. Was that how it was for you growing up, where there were
Oh,
these
for
blind spots, or
sure.
were you
Oh,
guys pretty open as a
no.
family?
Talk to each other about feelings. What are you, crazy? I
Yeah,
mean, even after my parents died, my relatives didn't come over and ask us how we're doing. In fact, my relatives did not come over with meatloaf and pot roast or anything. They did not help us one bit because I think there's shame and they're not knowing what to do, right? They didn't know what to do, and this is their brother or their sister. They just were overcome with whatever they had to do, whatever they had to manage, and we were left all by ourselves. So, this is what we do to people. We abandon ourselves, and in abandoning ourselves, we actually abandon others. So what I did is it took me obviously years to figure this thing out,
yeah,
but that's why I created that what I call the Wheel of Fear and the Wheel of Freedom, because the Wheel of Fear actually explains those blind spots.
okay,
Because those blind spots, what again, the Wheel of Fear is formed by the time you're 7. And, most of us can admit we have physical fears, right? Like heights, snakes. We can usually talk about those openly, and we have no problem doing
sure,
that, right? We just laugh at each other and go, I'm scared of snakes, right?
yeah,
But we don't openly talk about our emotional fears. And our emotional fears are driving us each and every day, each and every minute of the day. And your body and brain don't know the difference between an emotional fear and a physical fear. It doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. And oh, by the way, neuroscience is now saying that some of our fears are handed down through our DNA. So you don't even know why you have the wheel of fear that you do. It may have been nothing to do with anything that ever happened to you. It might be from your great great grandmother, your great 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 grandfather. So
Yeah.
these things cause you to feel like I did. I felt crazy. I'm like, why can't I get this? I'm smart. I'm a smart person. Why aren't I getting this? But no matter how smart I felt, this blind spot, as you call it, what I call the wheel of fear, is operating in order to keep you safe. And so it does not want to be found
Yeah.
because if it is found, all bets are off. So it does not want you to find it. And that's why it keeps you occupied on what I call fear responses. So are you open to a little quiz?
Yes.
Oh, alrighty then. So let me get out my book, Fearless Living, and I'm going to read a list of words out loud. And,
Okay.
and if you're willing to go ahead and nod your head if you do any of these things or feel any of these things, right? Nod your
Okay.
head, nod your
Sure.
head. And if you're
Sure.
with a bunch of people and you happen to be listening to this, you can shut your eyes if it's safe to do so. So you don't have to see anybody else nodding or feel like you're vulnerable, right? So I'm going
No.
to read a list of words. Nod your head if you do these things or feel these things. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
All right. Do you ever isolate yourself? Do you ever pretend everything's okay when it's not? Do you ever assume everything's all right, and not ask questions? God forbid you ask questions. Do you ever whine? Do you ever compare? Do you ever secretly manipulate? Do you ever get defensive? How about judge? What about complain? Do you ever procrastinate, worry? What about blame, deflect, control? What about you ever feel bitter or entitled or resentful or powerless? Do you ever feel disappointed? Are you ever a perfectionist or a people pleaser? What about overwhelmed? What about ignored? What about self-pity? What about irritated like now because you're making you nod your head 100 million times? What about annoyed? What about feeling like a victim? All right,
Wow. That's
everyone.
27 things right there. I was nodding my head to each one for those of you that can't see. So, holy cow, that's crazy.
So these are what I call fear responses. These are
Okay.
the things we do, and this isn't a complete list. This is just a partial
Sure.
list of the
Yeah.
things we do when we are activated by what I call the wheel of fear, when we are activated by fear. Because we don't get overwhelmed without a fear igniting it. We don't complain without a fear igniting it. We don't compare ourselves without a fear igniting it. We don't feel bitter, entitled, resentful without a fear igniting it. So most people look at the words that I just read of the fear responses as their problems, their character flaws, their defects, the things that to fix. Like, oh, if I just didn't quit procrastinating, if I just quit getting overwhelmed, if I just quit judging, I want to be a better person, I want to be a better person, right? And we beat ourselves up for those things that we call fear responses. So
Okay.
instead, the very first thing that people can do is the very first thing that you can do to take back your power is starting to identify any of the words that I spoke as fear responses. So when you get overwhelmed, instead of going, I'm overwhelmed, what's wrong with me? Stop and go, oh, this is a fear response. This is what Rhonda was talking about. Complaining, comparing, stop. Oh, that's a fear response. Oh, that's what that is. Okay. That means my wheel of fear is activated. Yes, that means your wheel of fear is activated. It is not you, it is your wheel of fear because the wheel of fear is devoted and committed to keeping you safe. And oh, by the way, it just wants to keep you alive. It doesn't care about your purpose. It doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care about anything except keeping you alive. And the only way that it knows to keep you alive is to have you do the same things you've been doing because you're alive right now.
Yeah. Wow. So there's a difference though. There's like healthy fear, right? So we're in two different parts of the country right now. But if like I'm sitting here and all of a sudden, a lion jumps into my
Sure.
room, I have this healthy fear of I need to get the heck out of here,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But if my neighbor who I don't like or am afraid of or whatever comes over and I have the same fear, I have that same reaction, not necessarily probably as healthy. And again, I don't want to label this, but
Mhm.
is there different types? I mean, there seems to be your brain is on your shoulders for one reason to protect yourself.
That's right.
And so, like, but it doesn't know the difference sometimes between my weird neighbor
That's right.
and a lion. So how do I help my brain? How do I help? How do I like? I feel like I have to put buckets, like a healthy
Well, you have
fear,
to,
an
yeah,
unhealthy
you
fear.
have to re-educate fear. You have to re-educate your brain, right?
Okay.
Because what we do is we keep labeling it flaws, we keep labeling it problems, and the brain goes, awesome, those are problems. Like, let's keep doing those. But
Yeah.
once you start labeling them correctly, i.e., fear responses, and what you're talking about is the difference between instinct, like our instinct to physically stay alive, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you walk into an elevator and you feel weird, get off the elevator. That is your instincts, right? Telling you, like, hey, you are not safe. That is awesome. The
Yep.
challenge is the body and brain don't know the difference between physical and emotional fears, as I said a minute ago. And those
Yep.
emotional fears are what really drive us all day long. We don't normally run into that tiger, right? But we do run into that neighbor that we don't particularly like. And then we'd
Sure.
run into his wife and his kids and, et cetera, et cetera. So those things, they're not threatening you per se, right? They're not physically threatening you, but they are emotionally threatening you because they've activated your wheel of fear, and your wheel of fear says they aren't safe. And now they may or may not be safe, but you're not going to think clearly if you don't take yourself down from that wheel of fear and move on to what I call the wheel of freedom. You're not going to be able to think correctly. You're not going to be able to see correctly. And
Sure.
neuroscience tells us there's only one way to change your life, period. End of story. One way is to change your perceptions. And so the wheel of fear is one way you perceive it, and the wheel of freedom is another. And by the way, just a quick note, let's say
Yeah.
there's 9 areas of life, financial, career, intimate, family. Everybody listening might be fearless and on their wheel of freedom, 8 out of 9 areas, right? And
Sure.
you're like, I'm flowing, I'm awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Yay. Right. When we're talking about fear, I want you to think of the area of your life that's not okay, that you beat yourself up for, that you judge yourself for, that
Yeah.
area of your life that you want to fix, that you think is broken.
Well, what if you don't know that? So that's before we take a break, I kind of want to ask that question because to me, it kind of kicks into that blind spot piece where a blind spot is visible to you, but it's not visible to me for my blind spots and vice versa. So, I mean, are there that opportunity where if I look at my life and go, somebody listening right now is going, I'm fat, dumb, and happy. Everything's good. I mean, how do you like deal? I mean, I
Hey,
don't want to be like, hey, you're not, look
no,
underneath
yeah,
your
but if
bed,
that's what
but
you believe, if that's what
yeah,
you believe, I had a guy come to my book signing in Atlanta, Georgia. He was like 6'3", and he comes from my book Fearless Living. He goes, I just came down here to tell you I'm fearless. And I'm like, really? That's awesome. Yay,
yeah,
you, right? I said, so can I give you a little quiz? He says, sure. I said, can you say I love you first? Have you forgiven? Do you have no regrets? Are you able to say I'm sorry? Right. And I listed all of these types of things
it
that
was done.
include that humility and vulnerability and
Yeah,
open-hearted connection. So
yeah,
people who sit there and say, I'm fine,
yeah.
usually, not always, sometimes they are, which is great. But many times they don't have the skill to actually have intimate, close relationships.
Oh. So how did it end for him? Did he fess up that he
Oh,
was
I mean,
unfearless?
he came in so like, and then every time I asked him a question, he's like, right, got shorter and shorter, littler and littler, because that's what people get confused by, right? They get
Sure.
confused because they're successful, they've have a house, they've been provided for their family, they've done awesome work, which again, yay, awesome.
Yeah,
But it's up to you if you want to be a fully realized human being and you want to have more connection with the people in your life, the people that you love. If you want
sure.
to feel vulnerable and be able to say I'm sorry and forgive, because that's
Yeah,
the way that opens hearts. And when there's open hearts, there's softness, there's compassion, there's connection. That's what the real goodies are, right? That's what we really live for. And many people on the wheel of fear try to get that from control, right? And
sure.
dominating. But that
Yeah.
doesn't get you that. That just gives you a false sense of that. It doesn't really give it to you at all.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it from a business perspective because I'm guessing people are listening right now. And again, whether it's a blind spot or it's something in the back of their mind that they don't want to admit, at least hopefully we can help them with that. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Honored to be hanging out with Rhonda Britten, founder and CEO of Fearless Living Institute out of the metropolis of California. So good job. Pretty soon you'll have your own country over there, you guys.
That's right.
Um,
I
you
always say
know,
we put the border in the wrong place. We put the
right,
wall in the wrong
exactly.
place.
Yes, exactly. Move it over a little to the east.
Just wa
Um,
Washington, Oregon, all the way up.
Yeah, exactly. Take that whole chunk. So for somebody listening, I want to kind of get practical. So let's just take a business owner that's listening right now, or an entrepreneur.
Mhm,
Maybe it's a
mhm,
sales professional, just somebody that hasn't, I mean, maybe they fear dying, maybe they fear flying, but these are these big fears and they can easily kind of manipulate and
mhm,
work around those types of things. I
mhm.
mean, I'm curious about like you talking about simple, like I'm afraid that I might not make sales quota this month, or
Sure.
I'm afraid I might not be able to make payroll, or I'm afraid I'm going to have to let one of my people go. Stuff like that, where it just seems like a natural fear. How does that kind of integrate into this whole concept that you're talking about, Rhonda?
Well, I'm going to give an exercise first of all, and then I'm going to bring it back to the Wheel of Fear, Wheel of Freedom. So
Perfect.
during the pandemic, I probably spoke to 60 or 70 groups for no charge. I just spoke to every group that anybody had because I wanted them to be able to keep their business and not lose their mind during this
Sure.
unprecedented time, which is, again,
Yep.
kind of repeating itself right now, right? And
Yep.
so, what I created is an exercise, control and no control. So if you have those concerns about, business, am I going to make payroll? Am I going to do, again, whatever those concerns are, I ask you to grab a piece of paper, put a line down the middle. On the left, say control, and on the right, say no control. And I want you to list all the things you have control over regarding that issue. So do one at a time. So if it's making payroll, what are you in control of? And write down every single solitary thing. And then what aren't you in control of? And write down every single solitary thing. Now, this is the kicker. Go to the control list and on a scale of 1 to 10, ask yourself how invested you are and how successful you're being in that area and how devoted you are, right? Like, how are you doing there? So,
Yeah.
what I've discovered is that most people, the things they can control on a scale of 1 to 10, they're not doing it as a 10. They're doing it as a 3. They're doing it at a 5. And they're way more concerned about the things they have no control over, right? They're looking at those things instead
Okay.
of keeping their eye on the controls and going, wait a minute, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm doing this at 2. I need to up this up to a 4, an 8, a 10. Because
Sure.
once you are able to, on a scale of 1 to 10, get those up to 8, 9, 10s, the things that are not in your control really fade away because
Okay.
you are actually much more powerful and much more in charge of every moment and every aspect of your business. So that's the exercise I want to give. And
Wow.
it's really impactful. I mean, I can't tell you how many people used it during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's so simple, right? And if you're a spiritual person, you can say that if you have the no control list and you're spiritual, you're a God person or, soul person, you can actually write no control and give it to God. Just put God up there and go like, you're in charge of this, God. I am not in charge of that, but I'm going to do my work over here. You do your work over
Sure.
there, right?
Sure. Wow. So, and this is where I think you guys come into this because I'm thinking about this exercise, and again, blind spots come in,
Mhm.
inability to dig deep enough comes in. Like ID and disc is like results oriented. I don't want to invest. I don't have time to sit and look at a blank sheet of paper. I got to go sell something. I got. So this seems to be where the Fearless Living Institute comes in because I saw in prep for today that you guys really that connecting that you talked about before is really important in your world. I'm assuming that if somebody's listening and they're struggling to make those connections of maybe a blind spot or they don't want to admit some of those fears, that's then where you guys come in, I'm guessing at that point. Is that accurate?
Right. So when somebody is in a place in their life, like you started off our talk today, is where are you stuck? Are you stuck? I can't tell you how many people have come up to me at an event, a speaking event, et cetera, and said, I'm just stuck. And that is, I dare say, use the word illusion. I know it feels real. Don't get me wrong. I know it feels real. I've felt stuck many a time in my life, but it is literally an illusion. And so the way to get through that stuckness, and again, this is the work of fearless living, is to help you identify that wheel of fear and that wheel of freedom. Because once you do, it's like the veil has come off, like, right? The blindfold has come off, and you
Sure.
actually see yourself with a clear lens, right? You're no longer pretending. You can no longer hide from yourself. And by the way, this is good news, and I know it's some for some people it's like scary news, but in
Yeah.
actuality, it is great news because now you won't feel crazy or broken or stupid or lazy, and you won't shame yourself or blame yourself. You're going to be able to see things crystal clear. And when you look at life through the wheel of fear and wheel of freedom, you give yourself some distance so you don't take on that shame anymore. You don't beat yourself up anymore because that is a no-no in the world of fearless living. Because beating yourself up is literally the gas in the engine of the wheel of fear. You're just like putting gas in it, right? So
Gotcha.
the wheel of fear, there is this thing that starts the whole thing is called the core trigger. And the core trigger, just like you said about blind spot, it is your blind spot. It is the number one blind spot. And it does not want to be found because if it's found, then it's all over, right? So it does not want you to find it at all. Now, I've come up with a bunch of exercises, of course, to help people find it so that they
Yeah.
can find it because once you see it, it's like I would say the number one reaction I get from people is they now understand why they did everything in their life, like why they got married, why they got divorced, why they went to college, why they didn't go to college, why they skipped this, why they went to that, right? It literally makes total sense to them. And so you're no longer a puzzle, like confused at who you are. Now
Yeah.
it's just choices based on do you want to make choices on your wheel of fear or do you want to make choices on your wheel of freedom? It's your choice. And
Sure.
by the way, all of us make moves on our wheel of fear, all of us, including myself. It's about not about do you do that, it's about how quickly you can move to your wheel of freedom.
Wow, that's awesome. I think about back when I was a kid, I grew up swimming and swimming competitively from a
Mm,
young age. And I was taught whatever you do, do not, under any circumstances, ever breathe underwater. So
mm.
that's what I was born with. That's what I was raised with. That's how I go. So I go into my adult life, and all of a sudden there's these two crazy words. One is snorkeling and one is scuba diving, and both of them require you to breathe underwater. Well, for the longest time, I would be in a tropical island somewhere and I'd be watching people and I'd be scared to death. I'm like, I can't do it. So I put
Mm.
on the mask, I put my head underwater, and I can't breathe in. I just because of my whole past world, that's what was telling me, hey, you can't do this. I
Yeah.
mean, I finally this year was able to overcome that and to work through that. But what do people do that have this fear built in? And this is legit fear on one hand because you're not supposed to breathe underwater, but
Yeah.
now all of a sudden I have this plastic apparatus on my face and the whole world changes, right?
Right,
So
right. A
for
different
those
perception, a different perception.
yeah, I mean, but it was like I was like for the life of me, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I was like resistant for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
And then I got from resistance, I moved off that to like maybe that kind of looks like fun. And I went from there to be like, oh my gosh, now I've done it and now I can kind of check that off my list. Do you see that progression for a lot of people in fear that they were kind of born and raised with something? Or are these fears like you were talking about? Some of them are, in your DNA, some of them you learn. I mean, like some of these are really hard to overcome. I'm
They're not
guessing,
actually. They're not actually, because once you understand, again, I'm not saying that doesn't take effort, right? Of course, it takes effort. But more important than effort, it takes awareness, right?
right?
Because you had resistance, and that resistance was how much fear had its hold on you. So how much you resist is how fear has you. But you were able to build your awareness and to recognize that you wanted to make a different choice. And
Yep,
so then you made steps little bit by little bit until you were able to overcome it this year. But
right.
the first thing that you had to do was make a decision on whether you actually wanted to go on this journey of being
Sure.
able to snorkel and scuba dive.
Yep,
And so most people never actually even come to the decision point. They just
okay,
go, no, 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 no. Their resistance is so strong that they don't even know that there's a decision to be had. So
gotcha.
when you take your personal power away and when you take your ability to make decisions away, you are leading a life that is basically on autopilot. Even though it looks good, I guarantee there's probably, if you had some loving people in your life and some courageous people in your life, and if you ask them, hey, I guarantee they would probably say to you ABC. Like
Yep.
if I could, talk to you about something, it would be
Sure.
ABC, right?
Yep.
So, the more that you're available and living on your wheel of freedom, you are not threatened by other people. You don't have to keep yourself safe because you are safe, right?
Sure.
And again,
Yep.
doesn't mean that when I go into an elevator and feel scared, I don't get out. That's not what I'm talking about. But we're talking about the emotional fears that drive you each and every day and literally make your decisions for you.
Wow. And I think about like flying. I have zero fear of flying. I fly all over the place and it doesn't bother me. However, if they said, "Hey, strap on this piece of material and then put it on your back and I'm going to push you out," that obviously changes the whole,
Yeah.
scenario there. Um, I mean, with good, loving people around you, like in business, that's why, like us as business coaches, we're almost pushing people out of the airplane sometimes.
Oh,
They
we're
say, I
totally.
want to do
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
I need to do this, but I don't know how. Just push me, you know?
Yeah, and
So,
sometimes it is a push, and sometimes it is just literally seeing them as their wheel of freedom, because most people have never really been seen as their true authentic nature.
okay,
Most people are seen on a daily basis based on what they produce, what they give, etc. They're not seen as who they really are. So, one of the things that I believe is that each person must be seen for who they really are. And when you're in that environment of true compassion, that true moment of really feeling seen and really feeling that there's enough space and time, like I never hurry my clients. I'll give you a quick example. I was hired by a company to coach their coaches. Okay, so there's coaches coaching their business clients, and
sure,
I was brought in to coach their coaches. And the head coach, the person who's in charge of all the coaches, I'm supposed to listen to all their sessions. So I'm listening to one session she had. And her client's assignment was make 50 sales calls. Okay, make 50 sales calls. And during the whole session, never did she actually really address the reason he didn't make those calls.
mm,
She just assumed it was procrastination or an excuse. And at
okay,
the end of the session, she said, okay, now you have to make 100. Now, for
oh,
certain personalities and certain people, that might break them because now they're really forced.
sure,
But nowhere did they have the discussion about what was really happening to
gotcha.
his nervous systems, to his thoughts, to his feelings, to his body. No conversation. And I'm like, that's the problem with our coaching world, by the way, is
Yeah,
that coaches are not adequately trained because we've
sure,
watered down coaching so much. So this coach who's in charge of all the coaches does not know how to coach,
sure,
does not know how to support her client.
wow,
So that's kind of an example of, I think, people who are ill prepared or don't have a lot of skills think being tough with people or like, you can do it. Come on, I'm going to push you out of the, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Again, sometimes it is the answer. But if that's the only tool you have,
right.
then you don't know how to coach.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think that's again where Fearless Living Institute comes in, because let's face it, for people listening and myself included, you have this fresh concept of fear. You have this fresh idea and you have this fresh, like, oh my gosh, I can do this. But
Yeah.
then there are times we need cheerleaders in our world. There's times where it's like, hey, Rhonda, I'm stuck on this. What do I do? And generally, as we start to land the plane today, I'm guessing generally, Rhonda, when people get stuck, they just stop. I mean, do most people try to really find an answer, or if it's just like, no, can't do it, not going to do it, and then they just stop? Is that what you
I,
generally
I,
see?
I think that's true for many people. But people who come to fearless living are clearly not the stoppers, right? Because they're
Yeah,
continuing to look for an answer.
sure.
And so if you are somebody who is going, there's something wrong with me. I feel crazy. Am I broken? What's wrong with me? Like, right? Whatever, however you have that conversation with yourself, right?
Yeah,
That conversation means that you are seeking a solution. You are seeking a solution and you have not found it yet. Now, you may not have found it because you don't like the answers you're getting, right? You don't
Yeah,
want to know about fear, right? You don't want to know about your blind spots. You don't want to know that. Well, then
sure,
keep on chugging along, right? But if you are willing to actually be seen, be loved, be respected, be supported in order to get to the other side, then that's where I come in, right? That's where my coaches come in, et cetera.
sure.
So, we have an opportunity here to help set the world free from fear. And for me personally, I believe fear is what gave my father permission to kill my mother. I believe fear is what made my mother stay in that marriage way too long. And I believe that fear is the reason I tried to kill myself 3 times and I drank.
Oh, wow. So, two questions, and then I'm going to let you go. And I forgot the first one, so that sucks because it was a really good question too.
It'll come back. It'll come
Oh,
back.
I know what it is. I got it. I got it. I got it.
Yay.
So, yes, exactly. So, for somebody listening that this is like so foreign, Rhonda, is there like a simple first step that they can kind of
Yes.
wrap their brain around this
Yes.
in just the smallest, simplest way?
Yes. 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 So
Love it.
the first thing is the fear responses. Just start naming your quote unquote problems or your the beating yourself up you do. Just start shifting that. That's a fear response. Just reframing it, relabeling it, that will give you some space. So that's a really important exercise. The other thing to do is, of course, the control, no control, if you're talked about the fear that you were discussing. But
Yep.
also, I'd love to give a gift of a
Okay.
course and go to fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK. And you're
Okay.
going to go, just like my gold stars, I took some stretch, risk, and dies.
Yep.
I created a course called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And if you have a plan, a goal, a dream, and you're not making movement in it in the way that you'd like to understand how fear works and in your projects and goals and dreams, then
Yeah.
that's the course for you, Stretch, Risk, or Die. So go on over to fearlessliving.org/risk. You're going to put your name and email in. You're going to get access to the platform, Fearless You platform. You're going to get access to the course as 3 15-minute videos, super simple. The third 15-minute video, I actually explain the whole wheel of fear. So you're going to
Okay.
see me talking about it in action.
Excellent. Oh my gosh. Well, if you can invest 15-minute increments, then obviously fear is not an issue for you, or it's a blind spot and you don't care about it. But for the people that do, go to fearlessliving.org/risk and start your journey there. And then from there, she'll be able to help you, and you guys decide how you want to continue that relationship moving forward. The last question that I have for you, Rhonda, before I let you go is what would your tip of the day be for somebody listening? Maybe
Mm.
it's something that we already covered. Maybe it's something still on your heart that needs to get out. But what would your tip of the day be today?
All right, let's be a little corny right now. We're going to go a little woo-woo corny. So if you're willing, put your hand on your heart.
Oh, is
Take a
that right?
nice,
Both of them?
yeah, be a little corny. Yeah.
Yep.
So let's take a nice deep breath. And I want you to listen to the words I'm about to speak. And I want you to take them in. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. Let those words soak into your cells, melt all that shame and blame away. Allow yourself to emerge whole and complete. There is nothing wrong with you. It is just fear. Breathe it in. Ah, yes.
There you go. That's awesome. If you sit and listen to this whole thing and you're not changed, please let me know because I want to help you out in any way I can. I'll connect you with Rhonda directly because this has been fantastic. We all have fear. We all deal with it. It stands sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes on a minute basis. Sometimes we're afraid of the weather, the government, our competitor, our team, our employer. I mean, there's just
Rejection, failure, success, the unknown.
oh my gosh, all those emotions that go above and beyond what I just mentioned. So please check out fearlessliving.org/risk to get started. That's a great spot to go. You have your Emmy Award winner, you have 4 books, you have 2 podcasts. There's a ton of stuff that you are doing in this world to help alleviate us from our fear. So I appreciate you so much for all that you're doing. And again, if you're listening, please avail yourself of that. If you walk away unchanged, I'm not feeling bad. Rhonda's not feeling bad because she gave you some killer information to be able to really make a difference in your world. And then once you make a difference in your world, you get to make differences in other people's worlds, which is where the real power comes in. So, again, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, Rhonda. I learned a ton. Now I got to do something with this. So I'm going to check out this the website and the risk piece and start that journey myself. And again, thank you for all this. And thanks for the gold stars too, because who does not like gold stars? I mean, that's like getting ice cream for lunch and
That's right.
skipping
That's right.
the veggies and going right for that. So
That's right. Do
that's
those gold
awesome.
stars. Be fearless.
Awesome. So thank you so much for hanging out, and we will continue to learn from you.
Awesome. Great. I look forward to it.